Hello, friends, and welcome to Virtual Strangers 24. I am your host, Wes. With me, as always, my good friend Ruuts. Ruuts, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Looking forward to the news that's came out this week. It's actually been a lot of news in VR this week.
This week and every week, it
Yeah.
seems like it's getting easier and easier to put these shows together. Um, so, what are we going to talk about first? First, let's talk about, in my opinion, the news of the week, and that being Ubisoft. Wasn't long ago, I think in July, that rumors began to surface about an impending deal between Facebook, Oculus, what have you, and Ubisoft. And the deal reportedly was to bring exclusive VR versions of Splinter Cell and/or Assassin's Creed to the Oculus platform, or a Oculus platform. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Um, but at the time, it was just a rumor. People cautioned that we should take these rumors with a grain of salt. Fast forward a few weeks later, the Ubisoft CEO is on an investor call, and it pretty much sounded like he was pumping up VR and basically showing support in what he believes is going to be a prominent line of business in the coming months and years. Again, you know, to be taken with a grain of salt by itself, but if you look at it in the larger scheme of things and put it with the earlier rumors that we had heard, it seemed like it might have a little more meaning than what it would have at face value. Again, though, cautiously optimistic, just rumors. Well, we found out this week that there are some job listings on the Ubisoft website, 9 in total at the time of this recording, with more to come, according to Ubisoft spokespeople. I don't know, an Ubisoft source. Many more, according to them, jobs that are going to be posted. And these jobs are for, quote, to build a 50-person strong team to work on an unannounced VR project. They are describing the game as a AAA title that will use one of Ubisoft's biggest IPs. So again, this news lends credence to the July rumor that Oculus has pinned a deal, even though they didn't name Oculus specifically, nor did they name Splinter Cell or Assassin's Creed specifically as being the titles that they're going to work on. But it all lines up. It all seems to point to those rumors being valid. So, Roots, what I'm wondering is this. I think it's pretty obvious at this point that these rumors are true, that these are going to be exclusive games for Oculus, for an Oculus platform. 50 person team, so a pretty big undertaking. My only concern is this. Being someone who comes from a PSVR background, someone who owns a PSVR or PS4 Pro, I know what it's like to have these exclusive AAA games being held back by older or less powerful machinery, because Sony won't publish anything that is that won't run on the OG PS4. And when I see Ubisoft aligning themselves with Oculus, obviously they're doing this because they want to sell games, right? Well, what's the fastest growing platform that Oculus has to offer right now? It's Oculus Quest, right? So, as awesome as I think it is that we're getting these titles, I'm thinking that they're probably going to be Quest titles. Am I off base here?
I don't know. I haven't thought about that actually. I'm hope you're off base because I want to see Assassin's Creed and Splinter Cell on Oculus Rift S or or maybe I'll have an index by then or something else that's came out that's better. I don't know. I don't know if it would be limited to it. Maybe it'd be 2 different versions or a scaled down version. I mean, they're getting really good. And we were just talking about earlier amongst ourselves about what a AAA company or any company really with 50 people working on a title. I mean, man, what the hell could they do with the Quest? Maybe it comes out and it's so optimized, and it's I mean, and it depends on what kind of game you're looking at. You know, maybe it's a third person one where you're in an environment and you've got the little person running around. I mean, I don't know. They could do some really cool stuff. Imagine Mortal Kombat, you know, like from a up above view, and you're watching the 2 people fighting each other, and you're fighting, but you're bird's eye, you know. I mean, they could, all these type of games, you could really even just keep it as it is and just put it in VR with the environment around you, and it would be amazing.
Yeah, I think that's really the question here is, I don't think there's any question really that what they're doing here. They're going to be bringing these games to Quest. Obviously, the numbers, the PC VR numbers aren't going to be large enough unless Facebook is just totally subsidizing the thing and paying for the whole thing out of pocket. But the question is, does the Rift version match the Quest version? Because as you know, there are 2 types of Quest ports. There are the ports like Journey of the Gods, where you can see 0 difference between the Quest version and the Rift version. And then there are the ports like the Vader Immortal, where there's an obvious difference. Even though it's the same game, there are big visual upgrades for the Rift version. So regardless of what path they decide to go here with these games, I'm really, really excited at the prospect of a big name Ubisoft title coming to Rift, whether it be a Quest port or not.
So what do you think the difference is with the developers, or what they did differently with Red Matter and Vader Immortal? You know, why does Red Matter look so amazing? And not that Vader Immortal doesn't, but it seems like they had to do more tricks. Or was it maybe because they developed it earlier? Is there something that maybe they had more people on Red Matter? I mean, obviously, I know you don't know the answer. I'm just posing these questions, but I just think as we go along further and they get more and more advanced in the optimization, especially with a big team, who knows what the hell they'll be able to do with those games. You know, I'm kind of psyched to see, and hopefully it wouldn't be something that is going to be, you know, even if it is different, let it be different in a way that is good for me as a Rift S owner. So that's all I got to say.
Yeah. Red Matter is a good example there. I think that points out how much power the Oculus Quest actually has in the hands of a talented developer. And I think Ubisoft, I think they fall into that category. I mean, they've got a catalog some 6 or 7 titles deep now when it comes to VR. Not only the ones that are showing on this trailer here, but even since this trailer came out, we've had we've had Transference and Space Junkies, both top-notch AAA titles that Ubisoft has produced. So yeah, I think if anyone can optimize for the Oculus Quest, it's going to be a team like this one Ubisoft is assembling. Again, 50 people deep. So I think that sky's the limit here for this, regardless of whether or not it was developed for Quest.
Yeah.
So yeah, this just goes back to what we've spoken of repeatedly on this show, and that we're coming into a new era for VR, not only with the new hardware, but with the developers getting some experience under their belt, learning how to make games for VR. And then we have a whole new wave of confidence from corporate sponsors. And it just seems like VR is blowing up everywhere right now. And this is just more evidence of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's that things are picking up pace. And I just expect it to get better. You know, if you think of it from the analogy of gaming consoles, you know, you'd have going from Nintendo to Super Nintendo, you know, PlayStation 1 to 2 to 3, and you'd see those jumps in technology, and we're getting that type of jump in technology every couple years. As far as the advancement in these games, I mean, just how far and how good they are, and I'm kind of psyched to see what's coming.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up the consoles specifically here because let's assume that the initial rumor that we heard about the alliance between Oculus and Ubisoft are true. Let's just assume that that's completely true, and that's what Ubisoft is building here is one of those two titles that were reported back in July. It wasn't a week or maybe 2 weeks prior to that rumor being released that there was another rumor that there was a deal between Oculus and Microsoft for the next generation Xbox to support Oculus Rift S. And if that rumor were to be true, you would expect to see deals like this. Ubisoft, other big name game developers making games exclusively for the Oculus platform, and maybe even more so than Oculus Quest.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe what we're seeing here is the beginnings of what's going to be the next blockbuster, the first blockbuster VR game to be played on the Microsoft Xbox.
Right, and Xbox, the new Xbox One or Xbox Two or whatever that they have, pretty much comes out swinging, bitch slaps Sony with two amazing titles, and I just think it's if it's true, it's brilliant. It's like we've said, the only way Oculus or Xbox can compete on day one with Sony if they were to come out with VR.
Yeah, and regardless of whether this is based around potential sales on Oculus Quest or potential sales on the next generation Xbox, it all spells out to the same thing, and that means competition for Sony, who happens to control the market right now as far as VR goes. Quest is coming up fast, but PSVR is still in that number one slot, and that in itself is enough to be excited about, because I don't expect Sony to take this lying down. If Ubisoft is going to be making games for Oculus, I can't wait to see who Sony makes their next deal with for their next game.
Sony PC, like we said, coming out with all their stuff on Epic. I don't know. It's just like you said, it's good for everybody. It's good for all of us VR enthusiasts that a year ago thought VR was dead. No, none of us really thought it, but they were trying to tell us it was dead. So
yeah. I think that this is just further evidence that VR is dead could be nothing further from the truth, and just more evidence that we're getting ready to enter into a awesome new era for VR. Okay, so it wasn't all sunshine and roses from the world of Ubisoft VR this week, and specifically I'm talking about Space Junkies. For those of you who don't know, Space Junkies is a multiplayer first-person shooter built from the ground up for VR that just released this past spring on all major VR platforms. It is a solely multiplayer game that has struggled pretty much since day one to keep people in its lobby, despite the fact that it's a very highly polished, well-supported VR title. It's a lot of fun, but obviously, at this stage in the growth of VR, it's still not really big enough to support this kind of title. So Ubisoft has done everything that they can. They've added content, new maps, new weapons. They've slashed the price down to almost nothing on several occasions. They've had several free weekends, and nothing has seemed to be good enough to draw people into Space Junkies. So their next or their latest plan of action to try to get people in the lobbies were to release it as a flat game. That maybe they could get some flat gamers in the lobbies to play against the VR players, and that would be enough to support this game. So they recently opened up a beta test, testing it out with flat gamers, and as of this past Wednesday, August 28th, the development team behind Space Junkies have brought the non-VR open beta to a close. Not only have they done that, but upon completion of the beta, they have announced that they are no longer going to be releasing this as a flat release. And furthermore, they're no longer going to be supporting this game with any further updates or any kind of future plans for it at all, honestly. They had released the first series of updates as seasonal content, Season 1. Well, there's not going to be a Season 2. The game is in its final state as we speak. That said, the game servers will remain open and accessible for those who have purchased the VR version. Ruuts, I recently purchased the VR version of this game, and I know you have a copy of it as well. Does this concern you at all that Ubisoft seems to have slammed the brakes off here and went completely 180 in the other direction with Space Junkies?
It concerns me. It concerns me because everything they did about this game was wrong from the beginning. You know, $30 price, just everything. And it seems like everything they do is reactionary and too late. This playing with non-VR people should have been day one. They should have focused on getting the lobbies full and realize this isn't PC regular games. This is VR and it's very limited people. You know, I was telling you earlier, Pavlov does well because it's $10. And everybody, it's like, well, why not buy it? $10 for the $10, everybody would buy this and everybody would have it. Now it's too little, too late. You could drop it to $5 and people probably still wouldn't buy it. And the lobbies are always empty. I don't know. I know you were saying earlier you think it's like having half of the game, right?
Well, I think that I think the game as it stands is a great game. It's highly polished AAA experience. I don't think the numbers are there to carry a game like this in VR. You know, Pavlov does well for what it is, but beyond being $10, it's also highly modifiable. There's lots of custom maps and things that people have made for that game, and I think that's a lot to do with the success of it. Furthermore, games like Pavlov and Onward are aiming at they're more realistic. They have real weapons in real scenarios. It's not a science fiction type thing like this is. But as far as the price goes, I mean, they've slashed this thing down to where it costs almost nothing. I paid like $7 for it, and they gave me 2 keys. That's how much they've slashed the prices.
Yeah.
Slashed the prices for this thing. So I don't think it's so much a cost thing. I don't think that.
No, it's a cost thing from the beginning. They didn't get the pools. It didn't get the lobbies full from the beginning. So all the people that were excited to play, there was nobody ever on. And then by the time that they started slashing the prices to get people in, people were moving on. They were done. You know, it was like you have one shot, and Ubisoft assumed everything was going to be like every other game. Well, multiplayer in VR is completely different. You know, you need to get the base in there or else it dies.
So they've seen the writing on the wall. They've realized the error of their ways. And well, let me ask you this. This news basically comes right on the heels of them announcing their new 50-plus person VR project. Do you think that game going into development has anything to do with them pulling out of this game? Because obviously the people who built this are very talented developers. You think maybe they're trying to move some of that manpower over to the new game?
Yeah, I mean, they probably did that last ditch effort. Okay, well, let's try, putting it non VR, see how we do. If it doesn't get to a certain point, we'll just move on and allocate the sources somewhere else. If you have even 5 people working on Space Junkies, that's 5 people that could be working on Splinter Cell or Assassin's Creed. So,
Yeah, I'd be interested to know. I'd be interested to know if any of these developers end up working on that project, whatever it may be. Um, so here we stand with again a very highly polished, very good AAA game with open servers that they say will remain open.
yeah.
Are you concerned that may change? That maybe the servers are open today, but maybe a year from now they're not going to be.
Yeah, they're not going to be. I mean, if you think about it, this news isn't going to make people rush out and get the game. Nothing's going to change. If anything, it's just going to be less and less people in the lobbies, and then eventually it dies out. VR is one of those games or places where you play games. People have a short attention span. They want to move on to something else, even myself included. It's very rare that I want to play a game today that I was playing last year. Especially with everything new coming out.
I think it's with this game specifically, it's more the genre than anything because, I mean, I have this game, you have this game, I have an extra key for this game that, I even tried to give it away to, I'm not going to call any names out, but I tried to give this game away and people were just kind of like, I wouldn't play it anyway.
You should give it to a viewer and then play with them.
That's why I kept it, honestly, is because I figure one of these days I'm going to need someone to jump in with me, and when that day comes, I'll just be able to give the game to them.
Yeah.
But the point I was trying to make here is we own this game, and yet we really haven't played it. And at least on my part, it has absolutely zero to do with, I don't think there's going to be people in there when I get in there. It's just... This just really isn't my type of a game. As good as it is, and it is good fun, I'm not looking to go play a game that's just solely a multiplayer game most of the time.
Right.
Why would you... Okay, you haven't played it either. Why would you say that you haven't went in and tried Space Junkies out?
No, I've tried it. I just, it's... I mean, obviously we have so many other games to play, but, and that's where I was throwing to you earlier is what you were saying earlier. If this game had a campaign in it, like a really cool campaign, and this was like an addition, everybody would have it. For $30 you have a really cool campaign to play through and you get to fight against other people. I mean, that's what these type of games used to be, and it's almost greed in a sense, or just short-sighted. This is that's what I was saying. I feel like this is 50% of what the game should be. There should be another half that's a campaign that gives people something to do that isn't against other people, because some people don't want to fight against real people. I'm one of those people, because usually they kill me, and it's rude. So
Yeah, well, that used to be the norm. That's where these types of games got their birth, is as a additional content. People would buy the game to play through some epic story-driven campaign, and then the multiplayer section would just be as an add-on to the game. And somewhere we've gotten away from that somewhere along the line. And I think a game like this specifically, especially now in VR where the player bases are so small, and I think that a game like this could have benefited from it greatly, even if it was just a short 3 or 4 hour campaign. I think it would have made all the difference with Space Junkies.
Yeah, I agree. Well, think about this. Think about Stormland. Coming out, and they have this edition that's like Space Junkies, and it's in a sense you're running around killing each other. You got, maybe instead of 1-on-1, you've got, or 3 on people, you've got like 8 people running around as robots killing shit. It's just extra stuff that would make a game that much more viable. So
yeah. I think that it makes a lot of sense, especially for the VR platform as it stands today. A lot of the players in VR are players like you and I who were never really much into the multiplayer thing to begin with, and VR, while it may open up open us up to new genres a little bit, still we like what we like. And those guys that are big time in the multiplayer, they're still playing Call of Duty and stuff right now. They haven't bought a headset, so I think that it would be I think it would be a big plus if anybody were planning on making these types of games in the future, if they would make it into a multiplayer mode instead of a multiplayer game.
Yeah, and you've
That's
got
my
50
2
people.
cents anyway.
Yeah, just have a bigger team, and then you can, if you want to charge more, charge more.
Exactly. All right, so moving on. That's enough Ubisoft for one day. This isn't the Ubisoft show. This is
Feels like it.
This is the Virtual Strangers VR show, and I'm going to talk about a good VR game, a game that I like to play, a multiplayer game at that, a game that's only multiplayer that I really enjoy, and that game is Rush VR. You know, Rush VR came out quite some time ago. Came out initially on PC VR, eventually expanded to PlayStation VR, and then even to Oculus Quest after that. And we thought that this thing was pretty much a done deal. The game was in its final version, and I at least was okay with that. Rush was an awesome game. Well, apparently these developers have not been resting on their laurels, because Rush VR received a big content update on September 3rd. So this is what they did with Rush. They added in a free flight mode. So no longer are you forced to just race against either other live players or AI bots, but now you can just jump, fly around, have fun. No more rings to fly through, none of that. No more time limits. They have added in these tokens that you can try to collect on your way down, but you don't have to. It's just something that they've added for extra challenge. They've also added a new track, and that being the Molten Tropics. And they describe that as being, quote, a devastating volcano which spews molten lava across the jungle floor. And that sounds just awesome. Ruuts tried to go in earlier today and get a look at the new Molten Tropics level, which has been added in, and obviously a new update was added into it again today, and for whatever reason made the game unplayable on Steam VR. So I want to go ahead and throw a shout out here to Paradise Decay, whose footage that you're watching right now, because we weren't able to go in and record our own. But Ruuts, looking at this footage, I think it looks pretty cool. What do you think?
Yeah, I wish I could see it in VR. I was so bummed out. Like, I was like, okay, I've got a couple hours. Wes is getting his kids to bed. He's getting everything settled at home. I'll just jump into Rush. But thank God you knew that there was an issue, because I was like getting into mode of, let me reinstall it. Let me just do a bunch of shit. I really want to see this. And I was a little sad, but it looks amazing actually. And even just the free fly mode, like, that's one of the things that I've always hated about this game in some respect, is like, sometimes I just want to fly around, and I think a lot of people felt that way, and it's cool that developers listen. So
yeah, this I've never really thought about a free flight mode too much on this game, because this is a family favorite here. We've got this game on PlayStation VR, and as you know, we've got 2 PSVR headsets. So this is a staple here. This is something that we like to get in and play together. So whenever I want to get into this game, there's always somebody here to get into it with me. But I think it's cool that they've added a free flight mode. Something else that they've added that I'm actually very curious about, they claim that crossplay is now enabled so that you can play with people on, quote, other platforms. So what I'm wondering here is, does this mean that Steam VR can now play with Oculus, or does this mean that PC VR can now play with PlayStation VR?
I don't know. Let me ask you this. Why can't they all just fucking play together? I don't understand that. Like, it's a multiplayer game. It's exactly what we just said killed the other game. Can you imagine if Space Junkies came out and closed it, but they could have played on other consoles, but they didn't? We're just not going to do it. You know, it just makes no sense to me. I know you have to have dedicated servers. It costs money. But nothing's worse than going to play a game with your friend that you're on Oculus and they're on Steam and you can't play together. You know, it's just stupid.
Yeah, I agree, and obviously they do too, and that's why they've added in the cross-play support. My only question is have they managed to convince Sony to allow PC crossplay with the PSVR?
I don't know. There's other games that do it. I mean, I know Star Trek does it, and you know, at some point, it has to happen, right? You know, like why would they allow Star Trek to do it if it's not if there's more than a reason than they just don't want to?
I can't speak to Star Trek specifically. I know that Star Trek initially didn't allow it, and Sony didn't allow it for any games. It actually took Fortnite to break down that wall. They were falling behind because all of the other platforms were supporting crossplay on Fortnite, and that's what brought Sony around to allowing crossplay on their titles. But it still isn't what I would call common. There's only a few titles that support it that I know of. But yeah, that's my biggest question here. Can I play with Ruuts on my PSVR, or do I have to pick up a PC copy of this to play with him that way? Or they could be referring specifically to Oculus Quest, which also supports this game. That would make a lot of sense as well.
Yeah, true. And what doesn't make sense is Quest and how they pick games for, you know.
That's a topic for another day. We'll talk about that later in the show. The Oculus Quest store and the criteria for getting published on Oculus Quest store. It isn't a very clear criteria at all, and we've got a discussion coming up on that. Stay tuned if you want to hear more about that topic. But back to Rush VR here. 3 big changes to what was already a great game. Hopefully whatever this was that they were trying to do to it today, they get it lined out fairly quickly, because I can't wait to check out this volcano in VR. It's something that I haven't seen a lot of. They do it in Farpoint, but I can't think of anything else off the top of my head that actually has an up-close view of a volcano in VR.
Yeah, I just think it's cool they're adding to it still.
Yeah, I do too. It's a great game. It's what, $20 this game costs, Ruuts?
Yeah, it's definitely worth it too. It's one of my favorite games as far as it just feels like arcadey almost, in a sense of what you would have done back in the day, standing there leaning and thinking, man, this would be so cool if I was in the game, you know. So.
Right. Yeah, you definitely get a feel of the height when you play Rush, but even more so when you get close to the ground, like PD's doing right here. You can really feel the speed of this game. Yeah, it's a go-to here multiplayer game that's fun for the whole family.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, a quick note about Until You Fall before we move forward here. You know, Until You Fall came out last week, and Ruuts and I both play it. We talked about it. I can't remember if it was the Monday show or the Sunday show. We talked about it. We both had a very good experience in this game. A procedurally generated melee combat game, arcade style in some ways, with some RPG elements, progression systems, and so forth. A really good game that played, even though it's in early access, it played like a full release, fully polished game. It looked and sounded beautiful like a full release for Ruuts and I.
Hmm.
That said, those people who tried it on Windows Mixed Reality and more prominently on Valve Index, not so much, not so many glowing reviews from those people. Those people reported a lot of glitches, a lot of game-breaking bugs, poor, blurry visuals, and overall an unplayable experience in this game, which I found to be difficult to believe based upon my experience. That said, come to find out that this game was only officially supporting Oculus Rift and HTC Vive. So that explains why those index players had such a poor experience. And Shell Games, the developer of Until You Fall, announced this past week that official support for the Windows Mixed Reality and Valve Index platforms will be coming in early October. So not very long to wait, less than a month now. And they even said that unofficial support would be coming even sooner. So those of you who like to opt into the beta versions of these games and get the updates early, it's likely that support will be coming even sooner. So those of you who have this game and are waiting for support may be interested in opting into that. Ruuts, have you been able to get back into Until You Fall any since we
No,
tried it last
backlog.
week?
Yeah, the backlog report isn't around, so I haven't gone back in. But I was just thinking that it would be cool. I don't know how it's set up for Index, but hopefully it would be this way when they grab those shards that you get after each round, that you actually grab it with the grip, and then because you squeeze it, like you hit a button and it crushes it. So it might be really cool to like grab it and then crush it yourself with the Index controller. But
I never thought about that. That's actually a really good idea. What Ruuts is talking about here is at the end of each wave that you battle through, they give you upgrades. Some of those upgrades come into the encased in crystal, and we have to push a button to break the crystal. But yeah, you're right, Ruuts. That would be perfect to just those controllers have pressure sensors in the handle, and you literally could just crush the crystal in your hand. That would be great.
yeah, this whoever's playing this round, I picked a different thing, man. They bitch slapped that boss like it's nothing. Yeah,
They probably have a few more repetitions in it than you and I.
yeah. Yeah, watching this
Anyway,
makes me want to play it though. Sorry, no, I just it looks good. That's so good, man.
Yeah, I'm the same way with like half the games we talk about on here. I start watching this footage and just want to stop recording the video and go play VR.
Yeah,
But anyway, not a whole lot to say here on Until You Fall. I just wanted to report. I know quite a few people out there with Valve Index headsets were upset. Some of them claiming that it was intentionally broken for the Valve Index. I've read this more than once in our comments and in our Discord, and I just wanted to let you guys know that Shell Games is bringing official support to your platform. You just have to take into consideration that this game has been in development most likely for well over a year, and for a lot longer than your platform has been around. So just hang in there. Support's coming just around the corner.
it just makes you wonder though. Like somebody's had a talking to. Like, why is this not? Why did this come out? Like, even if they just said on launch, "Hey, this isn't supported with Index and Window Mixed Reality," people know, and then there's not this big uproar. It's just an oversight that surprises me from Shell Games because they're so good. I guess it must have just been maybe somebody new, dropped the ball.
Yeah, I don't know. People are basing those claims on the fact that most things on Steam VR that support Vive work to some extent on Valve Index. Now, that said, what are we, like a month now, 6 weeks into the life of the Valve Index? So there haven't been a whole lot of new games come out in that period. So uh, I wouldn't be so quick to suspect something nefarious is at hand here, especially since they're promising support
Yeah,
in the near future. But, who knows? Maybe there's some kind of agenda going on here that we don't know about.
maybe.
Oculus Shields at Shell
Mm.
Games.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so that's enough about established VR games, games that we already own, games that we've already played. Let's take a look at a couple of new games that were either recently announced or uh, just recently discovered by me. Games that I've never heard of that I didn't know were coming until just this past week. And the first game I want to talk about is a game called Beasts Shall Rise. Now, it's funny with Beasts Shall Rise. I literally was. This was a late addition to our show format today. I was literally thinking to myself about how much I love playing horror games in VR, and about how I haven't played a horror game in quite a while. I need to find a game to get back into the horror. I love it so much. And then it occurred to me that next month is October. Halloween's just around the corner. Obviously, somebody's going to have to bring out a new horror release. I wonder who it's going to be. So, literally, right after I think this, my phone vibrates in my pocket. I pick it up. It's a new episode of VR 365. And right in the title of that video was this game, Beasts Shall Rise. So, I thought, wow, that sounds interesting. I look up the game on Steam, and wouldn't you know it, it's a brand new horror themed game coming out on Halloween this year. All right, so what is this game? Quote, fight your way through swarms of undead zombies, vampires, and werewolves in this action-packed VR game. So this game is it's going to be a first-person shooter, arcade style, and basically it's an homage to those 1980s zombie, vampire, werewolf movies, those old monster movies that we all loved when we were kids. That's basically the setting here. It's that kind of nostalgia that they're playing off of. And from what I can see from the footage here, this looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Ruuts, what did you think about it?
I couldn't believe how amazing it looks. I'm watching this footage, and a couple things are striking me. One, I'm watching Jesus actually move around on that cross, which is crazy. And then I don't know why they're carrying the cross anyway. Like, these zombies are running around attacking him, and he's holding the cross up, and it ain't doing jack shit, bro. Like, you're wasting your time. Throw that stuff, grab another gun, and go to work there. But man, this looks really good. The detail of the graphics, the zombies look like they're really cool looking, and the way they're moving is very lifelike and looks very encouraging. And for a game that, like you said, I never even heard of this thing until today, it blows me away, and just how much is coming out in such a short time from indie developers. So that it's just crazy.
Yeah, can you believe that this is just some indie dev out of nowhere released something that looks this polished? Now, obviously, we know that this is just a trailer. This isn't like some dude's gameplay footage, so they obviously picked things to put their game in the best light. But man, this thing looks awesome. It looks like it's been in development for quite a while. They say that it's a love letter to the classics: Doom, Castlevania, Ghost and Goblins, Gauntlet, these type of games. And they gave a little more info on it here, but I was trying to look it up real quick here. You mentioned that cross. When I'm reading over this list of key features here in Steam, the very last bullet point is called Jesus Radar. So
Okay, so maybe you have a radar by holding up the cross. Well, that's
maybe
kind of
that's what
cool
it
though.
is.
Well, I have my Jesus radar on too, so I can't blame him for. If I was in that scenario, I would be rebuking and I would be holding my cross up as well. So
Yeah, so I'd say that that's probably what that is. That's the Jesus radar, and it's telling you where they're coming from.
yeah.
Um, okay, so they're claiming a vast array of brutal weaponry, and they say the weapons that you can collect will depend upon the route you choose to take to the the final battle.
Hmm.
Um, Spawn points and pathways will change on each playthrough, meaning no two games will be identical. So this looks like it's taking the until you fall approach, and every time you play the game, you have a different map, and that map is going to give you different paths that you can take, and depending upon which path you take, uh, you'll get different weapons, power ups, so on and so forth. Generally, I don't like these arcade style games, uh, but it's something that I've developed a taste for since I became a VR gamer, and this just looks like a blast to me.
Yeah,
Um,
it looks really good.
let's see here. What else did they tell us about it?
So
Okay.
what? Scott doesn't have some hidden Easter eggs, right?
Oh, yeah, you got it. You got it. The game contains many seasonal hidden Easter eggs, which are triggered to only appear on certain days of the year. And uh, in addition to that, they say if you dare to play this game after dark, that you might trigger the Midnight Madness mode, which I imagine is a higher degree of difficulty, especially like if you're in a werewolf level. I imagine after midnight, on nights where there's a full moon, uh, in real life, it could affect what happens in the game. Some original ideas here, Roots. Uh, if you're going to have an arcade game, arcade style shooter game, this is the way to do it, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I wonder if you're actually like if you're moving scene to scene or if you're actually moving able to control your locomotion to the scene or if if you're stuck.
Oh no, it's completely free movement. They have three locomotion options. You can either have free movement, you can have regular teleportation, or you can have dash teleportation.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, even though it's like a wave based arcadey type thing, it's not really. You do have a map here that you're working your way through, but it's going to be something kind of like what's that game? Titan Slayer, or like maybe Evasion. It's going to be a map that you work your way through, but not very story based. It's going to be fast paced, arcade style gameplay. So while technically not a wave shooter, it's going to play like one. But with all these extra weapons and caveats, and you know, being able to move, make your way through a map makes all the difference to me. The fact that you're not looking at the same exact scenery as you play through the entire thing, that makes a big difference to me.
Jesus radar, dude. Look at him. He's rolling his head wherever they're. That's really cool, actually. Whoever thought of that was a very unique idea, and the thought of getting to carry Jesus around with me in the game makes me feel a little bit more comfort as the zombies are attacking me. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's really good thinking. I hope not only do I hope that this game turns out to be as good as it looks, but I hope it actually comes out on Halloween.
Yeah,
Because
that would be cool.
you know how these things go. It's targeted for Halloween. That doesn't mean that it's actually going to come out on Halloween. But if it does, I know what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah, and then maybe I'd like to see a video of Alex playing through it too. If it's scary.
Yeah, I think he would be able to handle something like this. This isn't one of those like terrifying, brutally gory horror games. This is spooky horror.
Mm.
Sure, it's a little bit bloody when you take their heads off, But again, this seems like Fright Night style horror. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Those mid '80s horror movies that we all used to love. This seems to be an homage to that. Kind of almost a Castlevania VR, except with guns instead of a whip.
Yeah, there's so many good games that are coming. I just get so excited as we get further along this year.
Yeah, I mean, man, I think we need to do a Monday show episode soon, just basically talking about anticipated upcoming releases because there's so much still slated to come out the rest of this year. I think we lose track of them quite often, and just have the next big thing in our mind. Like we're so focused in on Aspire One and Stormland right now that games like this kind of fall under the radar. And I think maybe we need to talk about it a bit here sometime in the very near future.
Yeah, Golem.
All right, so moving on, we've got one more of these games that are new to me, probably fairly recently announced. This one I've never heard of before at all either, and this one's called, I think, how would you pronounce that, Ruuts? I don't even know how to pronounce it.
Naau.
Now?
The Lost Eye. Yeah.
The Lost Eye. Yeah, it's Naau, either Now or Naau, The Lost Eye. And I just, again, saw this game today on Steam, and it's a very, very interesting looking game. This is a narrative VR action, adventure, and puzzle game. So not just one genre here, but it's an adventure game. There's going to be some action elements, some puzzle elements, but mainly a fantasy adventure. A lot of emphasis here, if you read what the developer says about this game, a lot of emphasis here on the physics. They want realistic physics in this game, and that's what they aim to deliver. Quote, realistic VR objects, characters, and environment interaction. You can grab and throw characters and objects around, or you can punch enemies. They promise a variety of advanced weaponry, special abilities, and combat techniques. You can access fireballs, magical powers, boomerangs, magical stones, flower guns, activated by collecting power stones, and more. You can battle against wizards, obsidian golems, Woldum giant trees, little creatures, giant flowers, and, quote, spider flowers, poisonous flowers, bats and bugs, and much more. Ruuts, this is basically a fantasy game. Normally the type of world that you would see in a role-playing game, only this is not a role-playing game. This is going to be an adventure game, complete with some limited puzzles and some very physics-based combat. I think this just looks cool as hell. What say you?
Yeah, it looks pretty cool actually. I'm wondering exactly, is it going to be somewhat of a platformer as well? It kind of looks like you might be running around as that person, but I don't know. It's very weird. A lot of it looks like very explanatory, and there's a lot left up in the air as far as what the gameplay is going to be like. But you're right, it looks really cool. It's definitely the design, the artwork. That portal when that guy goes flying through it looks really badass. So yeah, it has a lot of has me curious to see a little bit more about what's going on.
Well, there's just a few things about this that really excite me. I think that this game is going to be one of those that's hard to put a label on. So there may be some platforming in some sections of it. It may be a whole level of it. I think that they're kind of dipping their toes in a lot of different buckets here. But what really excites me about it is, one, that they claim realistic physics in a fantasy game, which is something really cool. Not the highest detailed graphics, but really good use of lighting and color here. I think that this is going to look really good in VR. Um, yeah, again, though, it's an indie developer. You never know how these things are going to turn out. They're claiming that this is in development for PC VR platforms, but this looks a lot like a Quest game to me, doesn't it?
Hmm.
You?
Yeah, it looks perfect for Quest. You know, like that. It's not too detailed, but detailed enough. Very colorful. It could be very good fit.
Yeah. The only concern being, obviously, people who develop for Quest have to have to optimize their games down to a very small file size, and this game looks like something that could be a bit of an epic, and especially coming from an indie developer, this could be a pretty large, download. So,
Maybe
uh,
they do it just for Quest. I mean, like you said, at least if you're going that route, it's not PlayStation. They're the ones that everybody wants to get their game on because they see the future, of hardware, right?
yeah,
So
yeah. Well, with the indie developer, you know when you talk about indie developers versus bigger developers, their definition of success is different. Whereas they might, Ubisoft might frown upon selling 5,000 copies of a Space Junkies. These people who are making Naau or Naau, whatever you want to call it, uh, that may be a big deal for them. If they could sell 5,000 copies of this game, if it's just a team of 3, 4, 5 people, that might be, uh, you know, a success for them. So, from what I understand, developing for Quest is a different a different skill set entirely. Uh, that's why we get a lot of this stuff on PC VR, is because you don't have to know how to optimize like that. So honestly, I'd be surprised if we see this on Quest, but just looking at it, uh, it looks like it could be done, uh, and it looks a lot like a Quest game. So who knows? Maybe we will one day.
yeah,
But anyway, like I was saying before, this type of game normally role playing game, and we've got a bunch of those in development. Um, I'm excited to see what these types of worlds translate to in VR. Like we have these sorts of adventure games on flat consoles. This was the type of stuff we used to play, like Zelda. These sorts of fantasy worlds. Uh, in fact, this looks a lot like the most recent Zelda game with the art style, but uh, we've yet to really get one in VR that I've played. I guess Vanishing Realms is kind of an adventure game. Would you consider Vanishing Realms to be more of a RPG or an adventure game?
I don't know. It's kind of like Carnage Chronicles type of game. It's not really like an RPG. In that respect, the only one, Orbis and that type of stuff, is trying to be a little bit MMORPG, but
All right. Well, anyway, this is upcoming game, spring 2020 on this one, so we still have quite a while to wait on it. But I thought it was a really cool looking trailer. I think that they checked off a lot of boxes here with what they're saying about the game. Let's just hope that it's able to live up to the image that they built for it here. All right. So moving on, the last big game, really, that I want to talk about on this week's program is a game that we've spoken about recently. Another fantasy game, actually. Now that I think about it, and that game is Nostos. Nostos is a fantasy game, but this one is an RPG. This is an MMO RPG that's been in development for quite some time. We found out just recently from the people at HTC that this game is going to be coming to us in Q4 this year. So not that long to wait, just a few months away. And they just recently, or actually currently, are in the midst of a 4-day long closed beta test for this game, featuring crossplay between VR and non-VR players during this beta. The beta test includes 2 specific main missions that each, together they're supposed to show off about 2 hours of story content from this game. That said, we've gotten, over the last few days, a lot of new footage of this game, actually. A new look that we hadn't seen before. Actually, there wasn't a lot to look at from this game before. We just had some small clips and a few screenshots. And we said if that game looks like these screenshots look, that we were going to be really excited to get into it and try it out. Ruuts, now we've gotten a much better look at this game. Well, I guess I should ask you, did you get a chance to check out some of this new footage? And if so, what did you think?
I did. When I was downloading it, when I first saw this game, I like these type of games, but I'm not big into anime, so I thought, it doesn't look like it'd be my type of game. But then I saw the footage of the gameplay, and I'm like, damn, this looks really good, and I do want to try it. I think it looks like it's done very well, very surprisingly well. So yeah, the art style in this game is very unique, and it looks just beautiful. The lighting, the characters, the art, everything about this looks awesome. I did notice one underlying problem with most of the footage that I saw, most of the new footage. There was a lot of jitter, a lot of shaking. Did you notice that? Yeah, I'm watching it now. It seems like his footage is a little bit shaky there, and it could be the same thing we've talked about before. I mean, it's it's an early release, or it's not even released yet, and they're recording OBS at the same time, and who knows what the hell optimization issues it's having, but it definitely is jittery.
They haven't had much of a chance to optimize it yet. They did recommend, for the people who participated in this beta, 9700K with 16 gigabytes of RAM and at least a 1080 Ti. So
to run it on highest settings, right?
Right. Well, yeah, to run it on high settings, they recommended that. You don't see that very often, even in the newest VR games. But again, as you said, this is it's a closed beta. It's early on. This game isn't set to come out for months from now. And to be honest, it looks a lot better than I even expected. Looks like there's going to be a lot of content here. If they're giving away 2 hours of it in a beta, obviously this is going to be an epic length adventure. Wouldn't you say so?
Yeah, it's going to be should be really big. And one thing I'm seeing a lot more of too is like the recommendations were 16 gigabytes of RAM, right? And I'm always looking at my monitor as I'm playing games a lot, and I'm noticing a lot of VR games, newer ones are using 10, 12, sometimes 14 gigs. Like, I'm getting to the point where I'm feeling like I need to get 16 more gigs, so I've got 32. It used to be they would say 16 was overkill. It's not quite the way it is anymore. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah, I mean, and now was actually a great time to make that upgrade, because when I built my PC a little over a year ago, RAM costs about 3 times what it costs now.
Wow.
So yeah, it'd actually be a pretty good time to do that. But yeah, I agree. The RAM requirements have certainly gone up in the newer games, and so have we're starting to see more games use more cores, whereas 4 cores used to be the standard. Now you're starting to see more games using 6 cores, 8 cores, really eating up those threads on your CPU, whereas 6-9 months ago that wasn't so much the case.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what this looks like finished product, right? Only a few
Yeah,
months away.
yeah. I was cautiously optimistic about it before, and even with the issues that I've noticed in it, I'm way more hyped on it now because there's quite a bit of footage out there. If you guys are interested in this, just type in Nostos into YouTube, filter out your results from the last week, and there's probably some 10 people or so already that have posted significant footage of this game, Upload VR being one of them. And this thing seems pretty epic. It really looks like what we wanted Journey of the Gods to be, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, yeah, it does.
But yeah, just one more game for us to talk about on our upcoming Monday show episode when we talk about anticipated VR games for the remainder of 2019. This one just moved a few notches up the list in my book.
Yeah, for me too.
All right, so I think that's going to wrap up the majority of the game talk we're going to have on this week's episode. Now, there is a couple other items I just want to touch on really quickly, and the first one being something really interesting to me, honestly, because we don't see this every day in VR. And what I'm talking about is the recording artist Bjork. She's a fairly popular recording artist from Iceland. She's been around since I was in high school. For those of you who don't know who Bjork is, where you been? Anyway, Bjork's always been an innovator when it comes to pushing the artistic boundaries of the way that she brings her music to her fans. And so certainly it's not a surprise when we find out that this week Bjork has re-released her 2015 album Vulnicura in VR. Well, how do you release an album in VR? So apparently the first half of this album is a lot of standard 360 video, live footage of her performing the songs. And as you progress and make your way through this experience, the second half seems to be more tailor-made for VR. A lot of 3D animations and things. Just a very artistic VR experience for those of you who are fans of Bjork's music and are fans of her as an artist. I'm not going to claim to be the biggest Bjork fan. I don't have any of her albums. But I am a fan. There are some songs of hers that I like. Occasionally, I will watch some of her videos on YouTube. Normally, it's something that I binge. Like maybe once every 6 months, it'll occur to me, hey, you know what I'd like to listen to right now? I'd like to listen to Bjork because she does have a beautiful voice. She has a very original music style, and I'll binge, I'll binge on her videos for 30 minutes here and there because they look like this. Always very unique, not just the video, but the music as well. So I, for one, am very curious to see what she has created for VR. Ruuts, are you familiar with Bjork? Are you a fan? Have you watched any of her videos? And what do you think about this VR experience that she's releasing?
Yes, no, and looks intriguing. I am aware of her. I have not seen any of her videos, and I'm sure I've heard the music, but I'm one of those people that I just don't pay attention to who's singing what, and I don't listen to much music anymore. But definitely aware of her, and I think this kind of thing is cool. Just even if you don't like her music, or don't ever intend to listen to it, like you do have people you do like, and I'm sure everybody would love to have their favorite artist, 9 Inch Nails or just whatever, like whatever album, your Metallica, just something that's put into a venue where it's an experience. And, you know, especially if you're one of those people that love live concerts, and, you know, think about what they can do when they can record, and they can right now, some of these concerts in such high footage that you do feel like you're there. Mix that with the audio, some effects, and make it to be kind of like, you know, I can make an argument back in the day going to those laser shows, you know, at the planetarium and stuff, could almost be better than going to a concert, because it was so cool and it looked cool. And now what you could do in the VR set with the music, it's limitless. And this actually looks very intriguing visually, even aside from what people have bitched about the beginning of the first half. So.
Yeah, that's my take on it too. Even though I am somewhat of a fan, again, I'm not a huge fan, but I do think she has a beautiful voice. I've always been intrigued by her how artistic her videos are. They're always very interesting, and I've got to imagine that this VR experience is no different. This is going to be an experience, even if you don't appreciate her music. This is going to be an experience, something that you remember. I guarantee that. It's something that I've been watching and interested in for a while. I knew this was coming because it's been listed as coming soon in Viveport, actually. But the problem with the Viveport is, one, it isn't released yet, and two, it only supports Vive in Viveport. They're not listing Rift as a supported platform here. And if you own a Rift and you want to experience this, you have to get it from Steam. And that normally would be okay, except for the fact that this is priced at $30 if you want to try it out today.
How long is it?
7 tracks from what I understand.
So the whole album, 7 tracks, about 35 minutes, maybe 30.
Yeah, a bit pricey, if you ask me. When you can buy the album for probably $10 or $15, the VR version of it. I mean, I get it. It costs money to produce something like this, but you know, I think it's going to be a rather exclusive club, the people that own this, because probably out of the group of people that I know, I probably want to experience this more than any of them, but I'm not willing to throw down $30 for it.
Yeah, it seems a little steep to me. $5, you know, $6 every 5 minutes, or I don't know, man. It just, yeah, no. It's definitely one I would check out on a sale, you know, because I was even looking at it.
If I could catch it like half off, $15, I would consider it then. And even then, I would have to think about it. I just wish that Viveport would just support Rift for it, so I wouldn't have to.
So let me ask you this. What artist out there would you not hesitate? Like, you find out they have an experience exactly like this. You know, some of it's 360, some of it's not, but you're like, fuck it, man. $30, I'm doing it now.
There's actually probably quite a few that I would throw down, you know, money down quick if it were a legit VR experience, like System of a Down. If System of a Down were to re-release one of their albums in VR, I'd be on it in a heartbeat, because I know not only am I going to really enjoy jamming out to that music, but Serge Tankian is quite an eccentric artist himself. So I'd be interested to see what they have to offer. But there's quite a few. If any of my favorite artists were to do this, I would probably throw down the 30.
Is it not a brilliant idea in a sense? I mean, if you think about it, we've talked about it before, you know, a lot of people that are into VR are older people, and we all grew up with MTV and VH1 and music videos that don't seem to exist like they used to. And then you release all your favorite music, all your artists release a specific album in VR only that does and gives you an experience you could never get And like it brings several different types of artistic things together, and I just think it could be magical. And I think it could be a whole another avenue of, you know, you've got your games, you've got your experiences, and you've got your music videos. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. Especially being from an artist that came to prominence in the '90s. Uh, I don't know how often you do this, but if you go back and start watching some of those videos that we used to watch when we were in high school, a lot of that shit is tripped out, man. I mean, really crazy from an artistic standpoint. And to think about the prospect of being able to be in some of those scenarios, that's pretty much exactly what you have here. You're going to be able to uh, be inside for some period of time, one of those 1990s era music videos. And I
Right,
think it's just,
with haptics, right? So you can feel the music too.
I'm not sure. I didn't read that, but
No, but I mean in general, like this type of a music thing, the
oh
things
yeah,
that
yeah,
they
yeah.
could do, is just crazy.
Yeah, yeah. The possibilities are endless. I think it's really awesome that Bjork is trailblazing here and carving a path out for maybe some future artists to do similar things. I also think that it says a lot about the future of VR. We keep coming back to it. More and more evidence that VR is coming into a new place in the mainstream culture. And again, this is just further evidence of that. When you have a big artist like this with a large following, deciding that it's worthwhile to produce something like this for VR, I think it says a lot.
Yeah.
All right, so that's pretty much going to wrap our show. I do have one more item that I want to just touch on very, very quickly here, and that's something we talked about last week, and that is the LOW-FI Kickstarter, which happens to be linked in our description again this week. Um, the initial goal that the Kickstarter had, the amount of money that they needed to raise to ensure that we were going to get this game as described, $45,552. Pretty good chunk of change, to be honest. Uh, I'm happy to report that LOW-FI met that goal in about 3.5 days. So before the fourth day rolled around, or finished rather, LOW-FI met their initial goal, 45,000 some odd dollars. But that said, the campaign continues on through October 2nd. We have most of a month remaining here to try to hit some of these stretch goals. You know, the more money that we contribute, the more content we get, the higher quality content we get. And this past week, Mr. Renaud revealed one of the stretch goals to be custom audio tracks to be recorded by the group Gunship. I'm not particularly familiar with Gunship, but I did, before we started this recording today, check out some of their tracks, and it's kind of cool. It's I would describe it as this 1980s flavored synthwave music. It sounds like something straight out of 1985. Really good vocals, really original soundtrack, and I think it's cool that he's got a group like this on board to do the soundtrack, and that's going to be the first stretch goal um, in a series of a lot of stuff that he has listed, although it's not all revealed quite yet. Um, a cool goal nonetheless. Just a reminder, a $38 contribution includes immediate access to the developer build of LOW-FI, as well as a finished copy of LOW-FI and a key for an Oculus Home copy of Technolust, which we reviewed this past week on the Virtual Strangers channel, so check that out if you haven't already. Anyway, I just want to report I just wanted to update you guys that the Kickstarter is already a success. And for those of you who haven't contributed yet, the link's in the description. If this seems like it's going to be your type of game, please go ahead and buy it now so that we can get a better game later.
Yeah, makes sense, right? It's like you're going to buy it anyway. Why not put the money up front so he knows what he's working with, and we all get a better game. So
yeah, and for those of you who we persuaded with our review of Technolust, that game is a lot better than we originally had thought. You know, upon the second playthrough, I discovered a lot of stuff, a lot of replayability in that, and to be able to get that for just a few more dollars on top of Lo-Fi, I really do think that that's the way to go. So if you guys were going to buy Technolust anyway for $20, why not just go ahead and drop the $38 right now and do your part to ensure that Lo-Fi is all that it can be.
yeah, exactly. And then you get to play through Technolust, and it'll tide you over until 2020 when this comes out. And you get the build that you saw us when we talked about it last time checking out. It's really cool. So
yeah, I don't know if they're handing out immediate access to that, or if they're going to wait until the end of the Kickstarter. I imagine that's probably October 3rd, October 4th. You'll get access to it. But the dude's working on it every day. He just updated it yesterday or the day before with a new gun holstering system, because a few people were complaining about how the guns, they just kind of randomly pop up in your hand and disappear a lot. So he redid that whole deal just based on two or three people being critical of it. So again, an awesome world to explore even now, and I can only imagine how much better it's going to be now that he has the funding to bring in help.
yep.
All right. That said, that's going to wrap up our news segment for the week. If we missed something that you want us to talk about, hit us up in the Discord or leave a comment down below, and we'll be glad to discuss it with you.
Yep.
All right. That said, that's going to bring us into our weekly segment where we go over the content for the rest of the week on the Virtual Strangers channel. So, as always, we have our Virtual Strangers program, which basically recaps the weekend news, the stuff that we're interested in anyway. We don't always talk about every headline, but we always live release this. Live premiere it on YouTube in the early afternoon on Sunday. We aim for 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but now that I said that, obviously we're not going to make it. You're probably watching this at some point later in the day, but
we're sorry, Jim.
yeah, sorry, Jim Hall. We tried, buddy.
Yeah.
Anyway, for those of you who are interested in chatting with us and the members of our community as this premieres, be sure to subscribe. Click the notification bell, and you will get a 30-minute heads up before our episode premieres. But for those of you who like to know ahead of time, we do aim for 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Sunday for the Virtual Strangers program. All right, we follow that up on Monday with the Monday Show. Tomorrow we're going to have the Monday Show number 4. All right, so what we're going to do tomorrow for the Monday Show, we're going to have our very first installment of the Backlog Report. And basically what the Backlog Report is, Ruuts and I each choose something that, something from our backlog, something that we've been meaning to play, but just haven't had the time to get around to. And we're going to play it, and then we're going to come on the Monday Show and we're going to talk about it. It's as simple as that. But we're going to do it a little bit different than designed this first week, because oddly enough, Ruuts and I both wanted to play the same game. So Ruuts and I are both going to play some Trover Saves the Universe, and we're going to be talking about Trover. We're going to be talking about that Jopo update or whatever it was. If it's still active, we're going to be experiencing that. And we're going to be making it a little further in the game than we did before when we did our review with Alex. And the first thing we're going to talk about on our episode tomorrow is Trover Saves the Universe. The second thing we're going to talk about is a game that we actually have early access to, and we've had access to for a few weeks now, and that is Touring Karts from Ivanovich Games. This is a Mario Kart style kart racer built for the ground up from VR. I do think they're going to implement a flat game version as well. I'm not quite sure, but I do know this is a cool looking kart style Mario Kart racer for VR. And yeah, the multiplayer isn't quite functional on it quite yet. They're going to be implementing that and testing it sometime in the next week. But the single player is ready right now, and there's quite a lot of content available to play through right now. And Ruuts and I are going to be talking about touring karts tomorrow as well. So be sure to tune in for that. And then for our topic, we always end with some kind of a topic we discuss. Tomorrow's topic is going to be the Oculus Quest store. It's been increasingly obvious that they have a very exclusive quality criteria for the games that they publish on their platform for Oculus Quest. And some very highly popular, highly polished games have been denied recently. Games like To the Top, games like Touring Karts have been denied access on the Oculus Quest store. And we're going to talk about maybe why that's happening and whether or not it's a good thing or bad thing for the future of the Oculus Quest. So be sure to tune in for that. So again, to summarize what we're going to be talking about on the Monday show number 4, we're going to start off with Trover Saves the Universe. We're going to be talking about early impressions of touring karts, and then we're going to talk about the Oculus Quest store and the criteria for being published on the Oculus Quest store. All right, so moving on from the Monday show, as always, Ruuts is going to pick a game to review. I'm going to pick a game to review. These reviews will come out sometime later in the week. Ruuts, what did you choose to review this week?
This week I chose Operation Warcade, and I noticed it was on sale on Oculus the other day, and I mentioned it in the Discord, actually. It's another reason to be a part of the Discord. We're always watching for good sales, even not just us, but everybody, and announcing all the good things that are on sale. But it was the daily deal, and it was $5, and I thought, oh my God, I got to pick that up. Even though I have access to it through, I think it's Alex's account, but I'm not sure. And then I thought, wow, I want to play this game. I want to finish this game. And I thought, oh shit, I can review it. So yeah, man, it's such a good game, and I can't wait to get into it again with the Rift S.
Yeah, I've actually got quite a bit of time in this game, but all of my time has been in PlayStation VR with the aim controller. And while I will be ducking in there quickly to see how badly I've fallen down the leaderboard, I do look forward to experiencing this in the Rift S as well. It's a load of fun and a very unique game, also from Ivanovich Games, like Touring Karts. And yeah, tune in this week if you want to see what Ruuts and I have to say about Operation Warcade. Yep. Now, my game for review this week is going to be another popular, very good game for all VR platforms, and that is Apex Construct. This is a game that I actually started playing on PlayStation VR. I actually have some time in it on PC VR as well, but the reason why I'm choosing to review this game this week is because I was granted review access to it on Oculus Quest some month and a half, 2 months ago. And I feel like if these developers were kind enough to grant me access to the Oculus Quest version, the least I can do is play through it and give my impressions. So tune in later this week to see what Ruuts and I think not only about the PlayStation version and the PC version, but the Oculus Quest version as well.
I was jonesing for a little bit of Batman voice, so I was glad when you picked this because it's been a while since I've played this game. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're definitely going to get your fix of Batman voice if you're going into this one.
Yeah.
Anyway, 2 awesome games up for review this week. So again, Virtual Strangers every Sunday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, live premiere on YouTube. The Monday show number 4 with Trover, touring carts, and the Oculus Quest store criteria. Ruuts' review of Operation Warcade, and then my review of Apex Construct, and thus we'll conclude another awesome week of content here on the Virtual Strangers channel. So, that being said, that's going to wrap up our episode today, folks. For those of you who have made it this far watching, we want to thank you so much. If you like what you've seen here, click the like button. And for those of you new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell to stay up to date on all of our nearly daily content here on the Virtual Strangers channel.
You know who else smells like a pile of butts? My mom!
Couldn't help it.
I get it. Anyway, thanks for watching, friends. For Ruuts, I'm Wes. We'll see you tomorrow, friends. Bye-bye.
All right. And take it easy.